You are part of a gathering, a private gathering here in Abu Dhabi of 50 global leaders in technology and energy. Tell me why this meeting is important. Tell me why collaboration between those two sectors is important and what opportunities will that create?
I think we're at a unique point in time with the confluence of what's happening from an energy needs perspective around the world, what's happening from the need to build the intelligence, artificial intelligence, to be able to help us address some of the world's most contentious issues, and at a time when we need to be able to decarbonize and move with the energy transition. I think this gathering is unique in that it brings those leaders from around the world, from the energy sector and the artificial intelligence technology sectors, to come together and start to be able to grapple with some of the dilemmas and the realities we are trying to address. And we need to do this now, and we need to do it with pace, because the needs are just growing, not just, by the way, in our sector, but across the sectors, in pharma and beyond. And I think this gathering has given us a platform to be able to build some of those partnerships which will hold us in good stead in the coming years.
Well, despite $250 billion has been invested in AI in 5 years between 2017 and 2023, only 5% of that amount has been channeled to energy. How can we increase the investment needed, especially given the huge demand by AI going forward when it comes especially to data centers?
I think the demand indeed is emerging, and it's emerging in a big way, and you're exactly right. A lot of the spend has been on the technology, but now as you move from technology to scale, which is what's happening, thousands of data centers around the world are needed to be able to build the scale that's required. You hit some of the real realities of the ecosystem we have, which is poor grid infrastructure in many countries, inefficiency, many countries that have maybe not yet invested in the energy that is required for the scale-up that we're talking about. So how are we going to attract that capital? I think it goes back to what we started off with. It's partnerships. It's partnerships with the financing firms, with the big infra funds. It's importantly government policy to create an enabling investment, an enabling climate for the investment. And it's companies like ours continuing to invest in all forms of energy, which are going to be required to both meet the AI demand growth, but also the growth that we continue to see in all other wakes of life, because energy demand continues to grow year after year. And that mix will evolve over time, but the direction is one, and that direction is energy demand growth over the coming years.
And building on that, how can AI help accelerate the energy transformation that we all want today? What are the main focus areas?
I'll give you a couple, but I'll also be very honest with you. I suspect what AI will do will open up our eyes to maybe avenues we haven't even thought about. What we are thinking about today is AI in the context of improved energy efficiency. So how do we get a lot more, for example, compute power or AI capacity for the same amount of energy? AI is going to be able to help us iterate, and is going to be able to help us improve that, not just in the way we are discharging energy towards the consumers, but of course there's energy that's being produced at different points in the day depending on the demand patterns. Industry typically needs that 24/7, people need it when they're awake. How does AI balance the grid to allow us to be able to maximize energy? So that's one. The second one, you talked about the energy transformation. An important element of that is making sure that the energy transformation is not happening with a lot more CO2. And so where AI needs to help us is to look at delivering that energy with increasingly lower CO2. How do they do that? One of the areas we're looking at, for example, is for carbon capture and sequestration. AI helps us to monitor the reservoirs and understand the injectivity of CO2 into the reservoirs much faster than we would without AI.
Well, how is the rise of AI impacted the strategy at Shell?
We've been looking at AI, so we had an AI team established in 2013 on the assumption that it was going to be an explosion in data. We didn't anticipate the inflection to happen as quickly as it did, but thankfully we had been working on our data for quite some time. And so the beginning of our strategy was get your foundations right. How has it now impacted our strategy? What it has allowed us to do is to be able to look at all the things we're trying to do, whether it is in new energy, conventional energy, in the way we string, for example, across a value chain to be able to serve our customers, it has now fast forwarded some of the objectives and thoughts that we had maybe for the 2030s into the 2020s. It has accelerated our thinking, and from an imagination perspective, it has inspired us to think more boldly in certain areas because of what's possible with AI at the moment.
And how do you picture the energy mix of the future?
It's a difficult one. What I would say is, let me start with the end point. The end point in my mind is plentiful energy for the world's needs, for the growing demands of the world's needs, but at increasingly lower carbon. That's an end point. What is clear is that fossil fuels will continue to have a big role to play for the next decades to be able to underpin that. I would also say renewables is going to be a critical part of that transition. So what I would expect is significantly more solar than what we see today, more wind. I also expect to see more bio, more nuclear. And so the way I would frame the future is it's an additive future of energy. It's taking all of our energies of today, adding them up to be able to meet that demand, but critically taking away the CO2 that today is what the pollution issues that impact the world are.
Thank you, Wa'el, for joining us today.
Thank
we
you
really
very much.
appreciate your time.
I appreciate your time as well.